Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Yes, I hope everybody is doing well. And we want to cover what's going on. One of the things that we just want to start off and say is that the guides, while they don't want to ever panic anybody, and we don't, we're always going to get those people that are going to say, oh, this is all just bluffing, saber rattling, nothing ever really changes. Though I think those people are fewer and farther between with everything that's going on, obviously, in the global situation. What the guides are telling us is, be at that highest level of preparedness. So we always prepare for the worst and then, again, put out the vibes for the best. But you gotta be prepared because we don't know when things will change drastically. And they're saying that there is drastic change that's coming. And we could see it with everything that's going on in the shipping industry, for instance, and the craziness that's going on. And I'm going to try to cover this relatively quick. But again, we want to be thorough at the same time. So when you look at the bigger picture, and this is talking about Russia's dramatic decision to cut direct diplomatic ties with NATO. And it goes on, this is again from RT, which is Russia Today, further proof that Moscow no longer cares what the West thinks. Now you might say, oh, so they're just putting their thumb on their nose and going nanny nanny poo poo.
Isn't he adorable?
And in some ways that could be what they're doing. In other ways, when you look at what China and Russia have done with dumping the dollar, with the entire shift of power, with everything that's going on with the rapid modernization of both of their militaries, and then we go back and we look at the statement, for instance, by Albert Pike in 1871 that the group that starts with an I and ends with an I has 3 WW conflagrations, 3 major world conflagrations planned. And, we've seen 2, and, is a third in the playbooks. Again, I think there's always plans and backup plans. And again, we are co-creating our reality as we speak. So if there's nobody to fight the war, then how could the war happen? And it's going to take, again, waking people up to the bigger picture. We grew up in the time frame, if you're of, my age group, all American, Chevy, apple pie, pledge allegiance, country can't do any wrong, or, Vietnam showed people, some people woke up to the fact that wars weren't always good guys versus bad guys. Sometimes they actually were all about money and power and control, and maybe just the fact that war is good business. Boy, it's big business when you look at it. Just go look at the budget, the military budgets, especially the United States. Well, we see this. We see 10 ships of the Russian Navy and Chinese Navy heading menacingly towards the United States. So this again was originally in Russian. I had to translate it. So hopefully the translation's good. It says, Russia and China are preparing to respond to U.S. provocations at their borders. After military exercises of the ships of the Russian Navy and Chinese Navy officially ended, turned out that 10 warships and submarines did not go to their places of permanent deployment as originally assumed, but moved towards the United States, according to Japanese media reports. Initially assumed that after completion of the exercise, the ships and submarines would return to their bases. On October 18th, through the Sangar Strait, the ships headed towards the Pacific Ocean, heading directly to the U.S. coast. Such actions may be related to the intentions of Moscow and Beijing to hold the United States accountable for provocations arranged near the maritime borders of these two states. probably through the conduct of yet another large-scale military exercise, but already off the coast of the U.S. And here we see a picture of the ships that are heading out, some destroyers and the like of both. Again, as I've been saying since, I made this channel in 2017, the original channel, which thankfully just had a strike removed. So we're
Yay.
down to one strike, but they did take off another video because it goes against, policy. That's what's been going on. But originally, I shared with you guys back in 2017 that I had visions of exactly what we're going through, and it was given to me by the guides. It was given to me by the Galactic Federation way back in 1984 that this is a possible timeline. Timelines can change. Again, if we get enough of the people in positions of power to wake up, then we can change timelines. That's the key. That's the key, because they've had this plan for a long time. So far, no official comments on this matter. At the same time, it's not possible to determine the current position of the group of ships. And there's submarines involved as well, which are hard to track. So this just felt like, I just felt a real sense of urgency with sharing this, because as we've said before, this is something that's been planned for a long time. There has been many people that have had visions of this. I mean, thousands of people, and we've covered some of them. And the Galactics have warned that, it's a real possibility, and the chances of this going off have gone from being, minor, slim to highly likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has gone from that to that for sure. Sorry, I was far away from the computer. I'm sorry. I'm closer.
Yeah.
I hope you guys hear me okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you could hear. So yeah, this is something we need to prepare for. Again, it's the same thing whether we're preparing in some ways for earth change disasters, hurricanes, quakes, things of that like, but military as well. Of course, they would manifest in different ways. So these are a list of the ships that passed through, and as you could see, it's basically five of each there, and that's interesting. This is it just a show of force? Is it just saber rattling? I wasn't able to translate it, but I'll give you a link to this, and maybe somebody could translate the full press release. And when we look at South Front, checking out the positions, a lot of the Navy is at home right now. So, they do show 100 ships out, or as in out of port, but when you get down to it, that's out of their home port, so they could be in other ports. So as we could see, there's basically two deployments. One to, well, that is actually a home port in Japan that we're seeing, and then over in the Indian Ocean, it's technically at port as well. But the majority is actually around the U.S. right now, which is interesting. We see the FBI raids Washington property linked to a sanctioned Russian tycoon, Oleg Deripaska. Billionaire's rep says it does not belong to him. And he's an aluminum tycoon, which is interesting. Again, one of the things to keep in mind, and many people that understand how things work, so much of the manufacturing that existed in this country in, say, the 1940s, and up until maybe about 30, 40 years ago, that was a powerhouse of why this country was able to do so well in World War II. Without the manufacturing going on that is making things like cars, which can be changed into making things like tanks and airplanes and the like, especially when you look at semiconductors. Think about what happened with the computer chips with the trucks. You remember that whole instance where they had so many trucks that came off the assembly lines, but they were missing a computer chip because it came from where? Mm-hmm. Fine dining ware country. Right. Guess what? when you're looking at how the U.S. is set up in terms of a long-term, long-scale war against China and Russia, because again, it is China and Russia's, again, the Galactics has said they will not allow a nuclear holocaust. But again, they have to allow free will, too, on the planet. So it's a tricky circumstance. Russia actually has the biggest nuclear arsenal, the U.S. Close behind. And we don't really know what China has, but if nukes are taken off the table, Russia and China are the first and second largest navies. China is actually the largest navy right now. And as far as tanks and land armaments, Russia has the most. So combined, it's a big force. And it wouldn't even just be those two countries. You would have Pakistan on the side with Russia and China. You'd have Iran. You'd have Cuba. You'd have Venezuela. You'd have North Korea. And many other smaller countries that would be involved in this. And again, we got to get the attention out there, and we have to wake up people before disaster strikes, because this is interesting what we're seeing going on here. And this article of RT about Washington's hysteria about Chinese hypersonic missile threat is just an excuse for its own military expansion, says Beijing, of course, as this tit for tat and everything. As we've said, ultimately the real controllers, they move the positions on both sides of the chessboard. That's the thing for humanity to realize. And, if we want to pull that biblical quote from the Tower of Babel, that tells us everything. They can't have us united. They have to have us always fighting each other, always being afraid of each other. This allows them to just basically stay in the shadows and let us do our own dirty work.
Yeah, that's really, really a mean thing to do. But until we realize that they are pitting us against each other, then how are we going to get anywhere? If we don't see the truth, how can we act on anything that is firm, that is tangible, if we're always working in an illusion?
And here we see detected and blocked Indian submarine incursion. Pakistani military says attempted incursion by Indian vessel occurred on Saturday night. As you see the actual footage of Indian submarine detection. India and China, obviously, they have a border that is contested, and there has been some hostilities there in recent times. And Pakistan and India, have always been tense and, obviously on different sides of the fence. So this is another spot where things could happen. And meanwhile, while we have, all this going on, if you're not paying attention, I just don't understand the thinking. People are hoarding. This is how Yahoo Finance. Food shortages are the next supply chain crunch. And in Denver, you got public school children facing shortages of milk. In Chicago, local market running out of canned goods and boxed items. People are seeing this now big time. And, hopefully they're waking up, as we've been, preaching about this for over 4 years about what's coming. And now it's go time. As we've been saying, the Galactics have been telling us, it's go time. It's go time. You have a billionaire supermarket owner warning food prices are going to go up tremendously. Mm-hmm. Well, how big is tremendously? It sounds bigger than 10%. To me, and we've noticed, so far where we are, I don't see shortages. But that, again, we're in a small town of 10,000. It takes time, for things to manifest in different places. But many of you guys out there have been sending us photos and showing us, shelves that are pretty bare in some spots. The owner of a New York City supermarket chain predicted the food prices will increase sharply in the coming months, with some increasing 10% in just 2 months. And so this is the billionaire supermarket owner of Cristetti's and D'Agostino Foods. So he's warning that food giants like Nabisco, Pepsi, and Coke will prioritize raising prices on products. So, again, how much is your money in the bank doing? This is the direct message we kind of got was from the guides was, You're better off having what you need available than holding on to money that's going to be worth less every single day.
And that's right. You know, they want us to have things that are tangible because they don't know how reliable money in the bank is going to be.
And many of you guys picked up barter and trade. Barter and trade is going to be so big. You know, it's going to be huge. And so you have people that do and have been stockpiling seeds, for instance, which, you know, seeds are going to be keep giving back to you time and time and time again. Save your seeds. And of course, obviously, we're talking about non-GMO organic seeds. You know, want to have those heirloom varieties because they're going to be able to keep reproducing. And, you know, I grew a whole bunch of peppers, all from just seeds of organic peppers that we had bought in the grocery store. Yeah, and they worked fine. They worked just fine. And actually, you know, there's only the two of us, but we do eat a lot of peppers. It's amazing how productive. And peppers, by the way, are a great source of vitamin C. So yeah, the world faces fiscal problems much worse than those from the plague upon the land. It is, as we've been saying, a symphony of destruction, as Dave Mustaine said so many decades ago. This is all orchestrated.
Gotta be careful there.
Yes. Yeah, you know, okay, we had talked about that one already. But it does still boggle my mind. Now, I know there's people out there that don't have a dime extra. And we understand that. Then still you got to think to your priorities. You got to look at everything. Just buy what makes sense for you. You know, you still want to eat healthy. And in our case, you know, I walk right by all the time. And sometimes it's hard to, when I see like sales that are so good on strawberries and different berries in particular that are really expensive for the organic and the conventional are, you know, two for the price of one often. I don't even look at them because they're loaded with pesticides. Not to say the organic might not have some on it as well, as we cannot trust anybody in this world as far as sources go, besides the one source. They insist everything will be fine as we face shortages of chicken, coffee, diapers, fish sticks, frozen meals, carbonated drinks. And, you know, it's catching on. Zero Hedge has always been ahead of the curve. And that's probably why they got kicked off of Twitter and then got reinstated. And, you know, because they tell it like it is. And you know, unfortunately in this world, when you tell it like it is, often you're labeled MISINFO. As we look, well, there's one thing for sale on the shelves.
Nobody wants it.
On Friday, hashtag bare shelves, BIDIN, #1 trending topic on Twitter. And, you know, when asked about this, Jennifer, I still like calling it Pisaki.
I like saying Pisaki. It's fun. It's fun. Jennifer Pisaki.
Jennifer Saki, to be officially
so we don't
accurate.
get in trouble. We would get in trouble too.
Yeah. But she was basically just saying, well, all this means that people are buying. Bare shelves, people are buying. Oh, yeah, they think that they're talking to preschoolers. That's how they view people, as people don't have the capacity to think for themselves. Well, often people have just simply relied on others to a much too high a percentage.
Yeah,
you know, it's like you wake up and you know, okay, I can't trust ABC, CBS, NBC. Okay, I can't trust MSNBC, Fox, CNN. Okay, I can't trust my senator. I can't trust, you know, our House of Representatives. You can't trust anything in a position of authority. Well, you know, that's why we should be trying to work our way out of the system together to create our own little networks. It's going to break down. It's going to break down big time. But it has to, because we are controlled through these massive machineries known as the political system, known as, the corporate system. I mean, all these corporations that are shielding the billionaire tycoons. As since the plague upon the land came about, the wealth has got consolidated at the rapidest pace ever. Shipping containers that spend weeks aboard ships stuck at ports are now being dumped in nearby neighborhoods. They spent weeks on board ships waiting to be unloaded, and I hope it's not perishable foodstuffs that have been exposed to, extreme temperatures or anything like that. That's a horrible thing when we have legitimate shortages, and there's no reason in this day and age for there to be anything lacking. So, if we're going to blame it even on something like a grand solar minimum, this is not the grand solar minimum causing these problems. Is the grand solar minimum something that needs to be addressed? Sure. The magnetic pole reversal? Sure. But we can see all this has been sped up through the work of man.
Well, yeah, we were just talking to someone yesterday, and they were saying that they won't, a truck driver was saying they won't allow trucks that are older than 11 years old to get on the docks to load stuff up. And that's purely creating red tape. That's doing nothing but creating problems.
So now they're saying that when they finally do get offloaded, they're just, they're congesting things because there were so many backlogged that when they do get unloaded, then these lots where they usually dump them are so full up that it's overflowing. And here we see the energy crunch is hitting the global recovery as winter approaches. Yeah, that's all coming in just at that same timing, that all too curiously destructive symphony of destruction. And, again, watch there be some really unusual weather patterns this year. And, it's interesting, too, because a lot of people are catching up. Like, we had talked about that video that was in, I think it was Washington State. As we see this out of Zero Hedge, the Atlanta Fed says the U.S. economy is suddenly on the verge of contraction. Surprise, surprise. Of course, this is going to be a major, major crash. We're watching it manifest before our very eyes. But in Washington State, they were watching all these ships out there and watching the cranes. And there were so many cranes that could be offloading these ships, and the majority weren't being used. So is it labor shortages caused because people need to have a date for men in order to actually go and man the crane? What's going on there? And then some had said that they saw such a lack of urgency where it seems like people are being intentionally lazy. Is it the case? I mean, scheduling problems, what's going on? Or is, who's really controlling things? Look deeper, look deeper. There's making the rounds is a list of some of the biggest corporations in the US. And you know what? Remember how we put things up to mirrors? The PCC is in control of a lot of them. Look to the ports. Who's running the ports in each case? And, you could tie these things all together. And then we see the ships at sea. Again, keep looking, keep looking. All this, it's just a line of dominoes that they've knocked that domino down, and you're just watching one thing after another. And meanwhile, we see here Democrats to scale back the Treasury's IRS bank reporting plan. So why in the world would they want to know every transaction that every American makes over $600? How many people, when you look at the average wage, how many people get a $600 paycheck? Right? They want to know, well, why did you get that? What if your mother loaned you some money and she wrote you a check? They're going to want to know the details. How did you get that money from your mom? What was it for? Does anybody ever wonder if perhaps this is really all about the, again, put it up to a mirror, PCC watching everything? Watching Maybe going to collect. Again, IRS doubling the size of the IRS, doubling the size of the IRS. Well, look at the size of the U.S. deficit. Look at, China's economic problems right now. And, here we see, we talked about the migrants. Many of them have the plague upon the land. And, according to somebody that used to work on the Border Patrol, over 16,000 that were recently released have it. Boy, that sounds contrary to what is logical. Mm. And also, there's plane flights in the middle of the night, 2:30 a.m., 4:30 a.m., scooting these people from across the border in Texas to like New York City and Atlanta at the middle of the night en masse. And, that Jen S girl, PS girl, Jen PS, let's call her Jen PS. I like it. She was just saying, well, those are just, taking advantage of the early morning window there, maybe flights are cheaper. I don't know. Maybe it's working hours. Gotta wonder, why are you doing things under the cover of night? Mm-hmm. 400,000 are expected to illegally cross the border this month alone. And we've gotten from the guides that if you want to talk about the number of people that are professionally trained, waiting here for word to do a job, and many of you can remember that famous movie with Patrick Swayze, I think it was 1984. Patrick Swayze, who else was in that? It was Charlie Sheen and I forget others, Emilio Estevez, and then they did a remake with the guy that plays Thor. Yeah, Wolverines. Remember Wolverines? Well, it's all part of that scenario that is going to be manifesting. This is part of that timeline that they planned. So again, we must do what we can to be prepared as best we can for major disruptions, for chaos. Can you imagine how chaotic it must have been, say, in the Civil War to receive goods? We know in World War II there was rationing. There's always rationing when war breaks out in the countries that are affected by the war. So again, you might be limited. 2 sticks of butter a month. Who knows? 2 loaves of bread a month. Look to the Irish potato famine, and it didn't have to happen. Look to what happened in the Ukraine, 1932, 1933. Didn't have to happen. So many of these things don't have to happen. And so, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, we can only count on ourselves and each other that are awake.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And, we have to be ready for when people are ready to wake up, too. A lot of people just simply aren't ready, so they won't listen, or they put too much effort into understanding something else. But believe me, when things change and people can't get their shipments, they can't get their medicine, stuff like that, they're going to be coming around asking.
So we want to thank you guys for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi, because we really couldn't do it without you guys. Also, everybody that's enjoyed the products from Medicinal Foods, use the coupon code EEA for an extra 5% off your order. And then as you fill up the cart, you could get up to 25% off and free shipping. Really good stuff, good people. And the thing that I love about them, besides where their heart is they're so awake and aware, and they're doing their best that they can to awaken people. As you see, like some of the topics, the pineal awakening protocol, cavity healing protocol, biohacks for health. They understand. They get it. These are good people, and they are family members.
Indeed.
As always, guys, be prepared. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.